Here's an uncomfortable question. If your income disappeared tomorrow, no paycheck, no severance, nothing, how many weeks could your current life survive on what you already have? For a lot of people watching this right now, the honest answer is somewhere between 2 and 4 weeks. Not because they don't make good money. Some of them make very good money. They just spend it in ways that quietly make sure none of it sticks around long enough to become security. This isn't a video about grinding harder, waking up at 5 a.m., or some secret investment nobody's told you about. It's about 7 ordinary decisions that feel completely normal, even smart, in the moment, that are working against you every single month. None of them are reckless. Most of the people making these mistakes are careful, responsible, hardworking people. That's what makes them dangerous. They don't feel like mistakes. They feel like just how adult life works. So let's go through them one at a time. Some of these will sound obvious. A couple might actually annoy you. But stick with it, because by the end, you'll understand why 2 people earning the exact same income can end up in completely different financial positions 10 years from now. And it usually has nothing to do with luck. 1. Financing a car you could never justify buying with cash. Here's the thing about a car payment. It doesn't feel like debt. It feels like a bill. Rent, utilities, car payment, it gets filed into the same mental folder as stuff I pay every month, even though a mortgage is buying you an asset that tends to hold or grow in value. And a car payment is buying you an asset that's guaranteed to lose value, on purpose, every single month you make it. And the payments have gotten genuinely brutal. As of the first quarter of 2026, the average monthly payment on a new car in the U.S. is $770, according to Experian's State of the Automotive Finance Market Report. The average used car payment is $531. Lease payments now average $619 a month. And loan terms keep stretching out. Near-prime borrowers are financing new vehicles for an average of over 75 months, more than 6 years, according to Experian's data. Do the math on that for a second. $770 a month payment for 6 years is over $55,000 spent on a vehicle that's worth roughly half of what you paid for it by the time you're still making payments on it. That's not a judgment, it's arithmetic. You're trading 6 years of your income for a machine you know, going in, will be worth less every single day you own it. The people who actually build wealth tend to treat cars completely differently, not because they're cheap, but because they understand a car is a tool for getting from A to B, not a monthly identity subscription. They buy something reliable, drive it well past the point where it stops feeling exciting, and let the money that would have gone toward a fancier payment go somewhere that doesn't lose value the second they drive it off the lot. If you're financing a car right now, this isn't a demand to sell it tomorrow. It's a prompt to ask one honest question next time you upgrade. Would I still want this car if nobody else ever saw me driving it? 2. Paying the minimum and calling it manageable. As of the second quarter of 2026, Americans owe $1.263 trillion in credit card debt, according to the Federal Reserve Bank of New York. The average balance sits at $6,610. And here's the part that actually matters. The average interest rate on cards currently accruing interest is 22.15%, according to the Federal Reserve's own consumer credit data. About 45% of cardholders carried a balance for at least a month in the past year. For the people who do carry one, that balance isn't sitting still. It's compounding against them every day. Here's what that looks like in practice. Say you're carrying today's average balance, a little over $6,600, and paying $150 a month, which feels responsible. Most people assume that clears in 4 or 5 years. At north of 20% interest, it can realistically take closer to 7 years to pay off. And by the time it's gone, you'll have handed the bank more in interest than the entire amount you originally charged. That's the part nobody explains clearly enough. A minimum payment isn't a repayment plan. It's a fee for staying in debt a little longer. The payment is calculated to be just large enough that you feel like you're making progress, and just small enough that you almost never actually finish. If you're carrying a balance right now, the math says the highest return you can get on any dollar isn't in a savings account, it's paying down a card charging you 22%. There's no legal, reliable way to earn a 22% return anywhere else. Killing that balance is the investment. 3. Not having an emergency fund and using a credit card as a stand-in for one. Bankrate's 2026 Emergency Savings Report found that 59% of Americans can't cover a $1,000 emergency without going into debt. Roughly 1 in 4 have no emergency savings at all. And in a separate Bankrate survey from earlier this year, 29% of people said they currently carry more credit card debt than they have in savings. Think about what that means day to day. It means the car repair, the ER copay, the broken water heater, the stuff that will happen, not might happen, gets paid for with borrowed money at 22% interest instead of money you already had sitting there for exactly that purpose. One unplanned $1,200 expense turns into $1,500 or $1,600 once the interest catches up. And now you're not just replacing a water heater, you're funding a bank's profit margin at the same time. An emergency fund isn't glamorous. It doesn't compound into a retirement fantasy, and nobody posts a photo of their savings account balance. But it's the single piece of financial infrastructure that determines whether a bad month stays a bad month or turns into 18 months of debt. Even $500 sitting untouched in a separate account changes the equation, because the emergency stops being a crisis and starts being an inconvenience. And this isn't just a low-income problem. Bankrate's data shows the gap between having a cushion and not having one cuts across income brackets. Plenty of people earning well above average still have nothing set aside, simply because they've never treated saving as a fixed, non-negotiable expense the way rent or a phone bill is. The people who never seem rattled by a surprise bill usually aren't earning dramatically more than everyone else. They just decided at some point that future emergency was a real line item in their budget instead of a problem to deal with later. 4. Letting subscriptions run on autopilot. This one sounds small. It isn't. According to C+R research, the average American estimates they spend about $86 a month on subscriptions. When researchers actually have people add up every recurring charge, streaming, apps, memberships, software, meal kits, the gym membership you haven't used since March, the real number comes out to $219 a month. That's a $133 monthly gap between what people think they're spending and what they're actually spending. Annualized, that's well over $1,500 a year, quietly leaving your account for things you forgot you were paying for. 74% of people in that same research said it's easy to forget about a recurring charge. And the average household is juggling 8 or more active subscriptions at once, spread across enough different billing dates that the total never shows up as one number anywhere. You don't feel $219 leave your account. You feel $12.99, then $9.99, then $34, then $60 on 4 different days, and none of them individually register as a decision. This isn't an argument for canceling everything and living without streaming. It's an argument for actually knowing the number. Pull up your last 2 bank statements and circle every recurring charge. Most people who do this for the first time find at least one subscription they'd completely forgotten existed, and usually 1 or 2 more they'd cancel in a heartbeat if they'd simply remembered. 5. Spending every raise before it even hits your account. This is the quiet one. Nobody notices it happening in real time, which is exactly why it works so well at keeping people stuck. According to Debt.com's 2026 budgeting survey, 48% of Americans currently report living paycheck to paycheck. And in multiple recent surveys, close to 4 in 10 people earning over $100,000 a year say the same thing. Making more money did not solve the problem for a huge share of high earners. It just raised the ceiling on the same problem. Here's how it happens. You get a raise or a new job with a $10,000 bump. The apartment gets nicer, the car gets newer. Dinners out get a little more frequent. None of these decisions feel excessive in isolation. Each one is a reasonable response to having more money. But collectively, they absorb the entire raise before it ever has a chance to become savings, an emergency fund, or breathing room. Nationally, the personal savings rate, how much of their income Americans actually set aside, sat at just 2.7% as of June 2026, according to the Bureau of Economic Analysis. For every extra dollar coming in, on average, almost all of it goes right back out. The fix isn't refusing every raise-fueled upgrade forever. It's putting a portion of every increase to work before your life expands to meet it. Get a raise, move half of it automatically the same week into savings or debt payoff before you ever see it sitting in checking. The other half is yours to enjoy. That single habit is the difference between a raise that changes your life and a raise that just changes your bills. 6. Buying things to be seen instead of buying things that make you secure. This one's less about a single number and more about a pattern. There's a well-known gap in Federal Reserve data between the average American net worth over $1 million and the median, meaning what a typical household actually has, which sits at roughly $192,700. That's not a typo, and it's not a contradiction. It's the difference between average and median. The average gets pulled way up by a relatively small number of extremely wealthy households, while the median tells you what things actually look like for most people. The takeaway is this: a lot of what gets treated as the normal American financial picture in headlines isn't actually normal for most people at all. What that means for you personally, the version of a wealthy life that gets shown to you constantly, the car, the trips, the house, is often financed, not owned. And when spending is driven by wanting to look a certain way rather than actually building security, the money goes toward things that impress people for about 4 seconds and then quietly lose value forever. The people who are actually financially secure tend to be far less visible about it than you'd expect. Not because they're hiding anything dramatic, just because visible spending and actual net worth are two completely different scoreboards, and the people winning at the second one usually stopped playing the first one a long time ago. 7. Measuring yourself by your income and never once checking your net worth. Income is the number everyone obsesses over. It's on your offer letter. It's the thing you compare with friends. It's the thing that feels like the scoreboard. But income is just what comes in the door. Net worth, everything you own, minus everything you owe, is the number that actually tells you whether you're building something or just cycling money through your life at a higher volume. Here's why that matters. Someone earning $95,000 a year with no debt, a fully funded emergency fund, and consistent monthly savings can have a dramatically stronger financial position than someone earning $150,000 a year with a $770 car payment, a $6,600 credit card balance, and nothing saved. On paper, the second person looks more successful. In reality, the first person has more control over their own life. Most people have never once calculated their own net worth. Not because it's hard, it's addition and subtraction. List what you own, subtract what you owe. But because a lot of people are quietly afraid of what the number might say. That fear is exactly why it's worth doing. You can't fix what you refuse to measure, and the number tends to get less scary, not more, once you actually look at it and start tracking it over time, instead of guessing. Go back to that question from the start of this video. How many weeks could you survive without a paycheck? None of these 7 things are really about cars, or credit cards, or subscriptions, or your last raise. They're about the same underlying question, asked 7 different ways. Is your money working to build you options, or is it working to maintain an image? The people who end up actually wealthy rarely get there through some dramatic breakthrough. They get there by quietly avoiding these 7 ordinary traps, year after year, while everyone else treats them as just the normal cost of living a modern life. You don't need a higher income to start. You need to stop doing a few things that feel completely normal and start noticing that normal for most people right now isn't actually working. None of this requires a windfall, a lucky break, or a total personality change. It requires picking one of these 7 and fixing it this month. Not all 7, just one. Pay the card down instead of adding one more thing to it. Audit the subscriptions before renewing another one. Move half of the next raise before it ever touches your checking account. Small, boring, repeatable decisions are the entire strategy. They always were.